Welcome to Survive Today. With us today on the line, we've got Sean from SGTreport. Welcome, Sean.
Oh, thanks, Ed. I appreciate you having me on. It's nice of you to invite me.
Yeah, well, we really appreciate it. We follow your website and your videos. We really love the quality of your videos and the content. And there's just so few people that are doing the reporting on this, so it's really great to see your stuff. And there's probably, like I say, a handful of people doing this out there. How did you get involved in kind of the alternative view out there? There's a lot of people that are just ill-informed. What got you on the path, so to speak?
Well, I think that for me personally, I've always been a person who questions authority, and I've always been a person who questions kind of the paradigm. I remember even from a young age questioning the JFK assassination and the official story and asking my mom about it. And I remember asking her, why is it that people don't press a little further on that? Because even at a young age, I thought that seemed like poppycock, that magic bullet theory. So I think from a young age, I was always just sort of one to kind of question everything, question my surroundings, question what we're told. Is the history of the world really the history of the world? How do we know? It's just what we're told in school. And so I've always sort of questioned everything. And then I got a journalism degree, and I went off and I worked in the commercial film and television industry, producing commercials and working on some TV shows. And, so to me, questioning everything, questioning an authority figure, questioning authority in government has always been important to me. And then when I learned about the role of the Federal Reserve in our monetary system and how they literally create money out of thin air, they have the Treasury do it, but they own the right to print our money out of thin air and charge us 6% interest on every dollar printed. That was really an epiphany for me. That's when things really started to make sense, Ed, and that's when I really wanted to start to play my role as a patriot, as a person, as an informed, caring citizen in our own republic, which is the role we all need to play. And so that's when I decided I was going to try to make some videos, use some of the skills that I had to at least share my perspective on things to see if I might be able to make a difference or, inform people or help in some way.
Yeah, absolutely, and it seems like you're doing a great job. I mean, like I said before, the production quality and the content itself is just really good, and you don't see it in too many places. For myself, my brother and I started a YouTube channel kind of as a hobby, but also to try and get the message out. We're Christians, and although we're not perfect models of that, I think I'll speak for us. We just feel like there's something coming down the road, and people are going to get blindsided by this, and the government, they're not the big brothers, we don't want them to be, but, people expect the government's going to step in and be the savior, and they're not preparing people for what is going to happen. And so we started doing a little bit of prepping and looking into the economy and just kind of trying to explore all the different options. And it's kind of intimidating at first when you consider all the lies that you've been told and just the kind of the drinking from a fire hose, all the information that's out there with respect to, a lot of conspiracy theories. I said earlier there's a lot of information out there, a lot of bad information, and there's very few places that you can go and get the kind of the truth in a very encapsulated format. Do you have any recommendations as far as resources out there, books that you may have read that kind of wake people up?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think what you guys are doing with your prepping information on your YouTube channel is really great, and I want to link to this too, so that people have an opportunity to get exposed to your information, because I don't really talk that much about prepping. It's not really my area of expertise, so it's really great that we're having this conversation. Maybe you could actually, share some tips with me. But yeah, I think as far as, where to find truth and how to uncover truth, I don't want to get into this particular subject, but I just want to mention what my litmus test is as it pertains to the media. And for me, the litmus test to help gauge whether or not you can trust a source as is, the filter through which you can use to maybe help judge a source as being credible or not credible information or mis or disinformation is, building number 7, World Trade Center number 7 on 9/11 collapsed at 5:20 in the afternoon in a very unexpected way, which NIST has really not been able to account for adequately. And most of the mainstream media will not touch that with a 10-foot pole. The sources that one could consider taking a look at online, whether it's Zero Hedge or Infowars.com or globalresearch.ca, or any number of different great sources online, whatreallyhappened.com, those sources will touch on that story, and they will take a look at the alternative evidence that is confrontational or not in agreement with the official story. So, Ed, for me personally, that is a bit of a litmus test that I like to use to help judge whether a tree bears fruit. So I just wanted to mention that to answer your question. Hey, speaking of globalresearch.ca, one of the great books that I read a few years ago that helped wake me up to this international war on terrorism is Michael Chossudovsky's book, America's War on Terrorism, and I highly recommend it. It's a great read, and it'll tell you everything you know about Al-Qaeda and the history of Al-Qaeda and our war in the war in Afghanistan and the war in Iraq. And it just goes through and it teaches you the history about Bin Laden and who Bin Laden was, and who created him. What the relationship is with the Saudi royal family and the Bin Ladens and the Bushes and the whole 9 yards. And then Bush Family of Secrets by Russ Baker is also an absolute must-read book. I couldn't recommend it more highly for people. And the third book I'd mention is Letters of Warning to a Young Patriot by Naomi Wolf, which is a brilliant book, and it outlines the 10 things that every government in the history of the world has done, the 10 steps towards fascism that have been taken as an open and free republic devolves into a fascist tyranny. And so those are the 3 books I highly recommend.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm going to check those out. And, I was talking to my brother recently about kind of the same topic. He's homeschooling his kids, and one of the reasons he doesn't want to put them in public school is because they don't teach you to think anymore. All they teach you to do is to learn what they spoon feed you, and critical thinking is just a lost thing. And it's evidenced by conversations I've had with people, and I'll admit, even in my own mind, when you're talking about your upbringing and how you got on this path, for me, I've always been a rebel, and I've gotten into a lot of trouble because of it over the years. But oddly enough, when I kind of got my life together and as an adult tried to settle down, I started to buy the whole conservative Republican line. And I have to say, in retrospect, there was a lot of stuff that I just swallowed hook, line, and sinker. And it's only been in the last couple years that I've really rethought a lot of that, including just a lot of stuff. And the more you dig, the more you, it's like peeling an onion. There's just so many layers to this. But I like Chris Martenson had that crash course. I don't know if you've heard about that.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's fantastic. I agree.
Yeah, and Money Masters, the guy reaches some conclusions that I don't know if I agree with as far as how to fix everything, but certainly the things that go into why we're in the state we're in with respect to the Fed and so forth. And then
sure,
American Dream, that cartoon that those guys created.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, there's some good stuff out there.
Bill Still's Money Masters is the 15th most watched documentary in the history of the Internet. So it's a little slower pace. It's 3 hours, but it's brilliantly done. The information is really incredible, and I agree. That's one of the documentaries that taught me a lot, too.
It's funny because I bought that DVD set, and I think that's the one that's like 18 parts or whatever, and 3 DVDs. Before our daughter went off to college, we sat down and every night for I don't know how many weeks. Well, not every night, but we took some nights off. But I put him through that torture of going through that whole thing. But you know what? I don't regret it. I think it's information that you don't hear anywhere else, and it's truth. I look at guys like Alex Jones, and I don't believe everything he says. Obviously, everyone's got different opinions about things, but certainly a lot of what he says is right on the money, and he's really sticking his neck out. You know, when I look at Alex Jones, I think, man, this guy is going to have a stroke. He's just so high energy, and he's always worked up. Do you have any advice for preppers and people that kind of ponder this whole mindset on a day-to-day basis? It can be a lot. I think, you know, you got to be deliberate about, you know, stepping back from it. But do you have any opinions about that?
Yeah, I do, actually, and I think you're right. I think you do need to step back, and I think to some degree, people who want to remain really mentally healthy as we look at these really serious issues, and then we try to engage others whom we care about, you know, in these important, critical issues, and then we hit closed-mindedness, or we hit what we like to call, we accuse people of being sheeple because they just want to remain brainwashed and they want to remain asleep. That is really challenging, and what I've found is necessary is that you kind of need to compartmentalize your life to the degree that it really doesn't pay to try to reach out to everybody in your immediate life. I mean, you can, but when you hit a wall, just stop. Because what I've found, and I'm sure what you found, Ed, is that everybody needs to wake up on their own. So plant the seed, but then if you're hitting resistance, just lay off, because it doesn't pay to ruin friendships over it. I get emails all the time from people who are asking me for advice because, you know, they're having trouble in their marriages because their wives are just sick and tired of hearing about this stuff, or vice versa. You know, a wife who says, you know, my husband just doesn't want anything to do with any of this. He doesn't want gold and silver. He doesn't want to talk about it, and he wants me to shut up. You do need, I think, to maintain those relationships because it's important. It's important for us to continue to have friends and family, and we can't wake everybody up on our own. So to some degree, you know, we need to compartmentalize. We need to find platforms to talk about these things like you and I are doing right now. This is a great, safe platform. Those who want to hear the information are listening on their own, are finding it on their own. And, you know, great for them. Good for everybody listening. I mean, I'm proud of you. I think that if you can spread this around to somebody who might be hesitant to listen, maybe they'll hear something I'm saying that'll resonate in a way that they didn't expect it to, and maybe they will Google World Trade Center 7. Maybe they're going to take a look at that and say, well, I don't know what that guy was talking about. He was crazy. But then they'll see it and say, well, what in the heck is that all about? And then dig a little bit deeper. That's the only way most people are going to wake up, is if they choose to do it on their own. And I think more and more people are waking up as we see what the Federal Reserve System and the bankers are doing to this country, as they've done to Europe, as they've done to third world countries for decades. And so now the chicken's coming home to roost a little bit, and, well, in a big way, actually. And I think more and more people are waking up, and they might not know exactly what's wrong, but they know something is wrong. So there's a lot more ears willing to listen to this type of information, Ed.
Yeah, you're right. You know, one of the things that I guess it probably opens up more questions than it answers, but, you know, for instance, Lindsey Williams, he believes that the oil barons and the elites, I think he refers to them as the elites, they wanted to sell you know, dollars to the Saudis and get oil in return, and I guess the end game for them is that they're going to crash the system and walk away with all the oil, and then, you know, Saudis will be left with paper. You know, Bix Weir talks about the good guys and Greenspan, you know, basically trying to crash the system so that they can bring in a gold standard. Other people refer to the Bilderbergers and what they're, you know, when you think about all the possibilities, I have to say, my brother and I had this conversation more than once, where ultimately, at least from a Christian worldview, there are forces at work that are beyond the earthly actors that are trying to set the stage for whatever is about to happen. And I won't, you know, bore people with my opinions about that. But do you have any opinions about what's happening here? Are these all just different factions, greedy factions of evil people trying to jockey for their little piece of the pie? Or what's your general sense of kind of the big picture of all this and where it's going?
Well, boy, that's a big question. I think the first thing I would say is that for anybody willing to just do a quick Google search, type in SGT interviews Andrew Gavin Marshall Bilderberg Group, and listen to that two-part interview, because Andrew Gavin Marshall is a really dedicated researcher. He's done a lot of work for globalresearch.ca, and we have a very calm, intellectual discussion about Bilderberg Group, what it is, who's in it, and what their goal is. And yeah, I mean, I think ultimately you're talking about centuries-old monarchies. You're talking about CEOs of major multinational companies who report to people like Rockefeller and Rothschild and these other players that have centuries-old family money. You're talking about the robber barons who essentially wanted to create monopolies and enslave men and women in their monopolies that they would own. And this isn't a new game. This is just new to a lot of us. I mean, it's not new information. It's just new to a lot of us. This is stuff that G. Edward Griffin has been talking about for a very long time. This is stuff Ron Paul has been talking about for a very long time. Not so much Bilderberg specifically, but the message of liberty. This great experiment in the Republic of the United States of America is fading fast because we're getting away from the Constitution. We're getting away from personal sovereignty. We're getting away from national sovereignty. We're getting away from our ability to govern ourselves by allowing those that are rich and wealthy to do it for us, because too many of us are too lazy to pay attention to what's going on and too lazy to learn about what went on in the past. So all of this stuff that you just mentioned and I just quickly mentioned is history. It's not conspiracy theory. It's conspiracy fact. So whether or not you choose to learn the facts, that's your call. Anybody listening, you can either agree with me or not agree with me. I don't care. But the history will not change, regardless of what you think. So what we all need to face is the painful truth is that there is a group of people on the planet that have a heck of a lot more resources than most of us and a heck of a lot more money, and they have multi-generational family wealth that they have used to create foundations and to fund universities and to buy up corporations to essentially create monopolies which will eventually enslave all of us, especially if we let them ruin our currency and take what little sovereignty we have left by turning over our own ability to govern ourselves to a one-world government, if you will.
Yeah, that's very well put. And, I guess the upshot for me and maybe the takeaway for people listening to this is, obviously there's so many different topics we could talk about, but check out Sean's website and his YouTube channel, SGTreport.com and SGTbull07 on YouTube, and check out some of these resources that he's talked about. Check out our channel in the future. Maybe we'll have more information on this or other topics. But I think for me the takeaway is just keep your eyes wide open and don't believe everything you hear, and try to make a difference. Don't feel like you can't do anything. There's always something you can do.
Absolutely. And Ed, before we go, for the benefit of folks that would tune in, on my channel or website, tell us some prepping tips, would you? What is maybe your top 10 list of things people must have and need to know about being prepared for a worst case scenario, whether it's a financial collapse, a collapse of the dollar, or even say a tornado hits your city. Maybe that's a bad example, but in the event of a hurricane or some natural disaster like an earthquake, what are some of the things people need to have on hand to help get through a 2 or 3 week or even longer period?
Sure. I think, first of all, you need community, and that's not something you can buy. You need to develop friendships with your neighbors, get to know people around you, because community is going to be very important. In our, kind of affluent, compartmentalized society, we've grown away from that, and we don't talk to our neighbors, and, we're going to need each other going forward. So I think that's the first thing. You need to get to know the folks around you. Also, physical preparations, if you are in a city or if you're relying on infrastructure, just kind of, in a general sense, look at the infrastructure and think, well, will this be here if there is a degradation or a breakdown in society? Argentina's experienced problems very similar to where we're headed, and one of the first things that went was the water. So it would make sense to have a water filter or some means of, obtaining and storing water. The Nez Perce Indians used to have this attitude that if it was necessary for sustenance of life, that you'd want 3 distinct sources. So you might consider a well, you might consider stored water, you might consider filtration. Just let your mind kind of go into the different areas there. Or storable food. That's the next thing I would say you definitely need. There's all kinds of companies out there that sell freeze-dried and storable foods. The Mormons are experts at it. LDS, if you look on the web, they have very reasonable cost food staples that are storable for a long period of time. Also, we've got some videos on Survive2Day.com and our YouTube channel that show you how to store your own food. You can take rice, beans, wheat, and oats, and you can store those in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, and it can last a long time, 10 plus years. And then security. I think you're going to want to have some way to protect yourself. Not everybody wants to be a gun owner, but I would challenge people to think, what if the police can't arrive in time? How would I protect my family? So explore those options. And then finally, more your expertise, Sean, would be, invest your money in sound things. I don't think that paper assets are going to be much use in the future, and so anything that you buy and store now by way of food and so forth are going to be good. Your preparations are going to be good, but also gold and silver. That's kind of the overview. That's where I would start. There's a lot more probably, but that's a good start.
That's a great list, and then we can find. Well, I guess people would be watching your YouTube channel now, which is Survive2Day, right?
Yes, Survive2Day, Survive the number 2 DAY, and kind of the only thing we could find that wasn't already taken when we registered our domain name, but it's kind of catchy, so
yeah,
that's what we're stuck with.
Hey, I really appreciate your inviting me on. I appreciate it. That was fun.
Hey, well, thanks for being on the call here. I really appreciate it, and maybe we'll talk in the future.
Yeah, I look forward to it anytime. Thanks, Ed.
All right, thanks a lot.
Okay, take care.
You too.